From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell. Canadian climate negotiators are headed to Brazil for the next 2 weeks as leaders gather for annual United Nations climate talks known as COP30.
A Canadian climate policy expert says leaders will face questions about how committed they are in upholding climate diplomacy and taking steps to meet global warming targets. Federal officials say Canada will continue to play a bridge builder role to help countries reach a consensus on some of the summit's key issues. Although climate observers say Canada's support for oil and gas expansion, as well as its silence on whether it will meet the 2030 and 2035 emissions targets, could be among issues undermining its position. Naira Ahmed, The Canadian Press.
More than 10,000 protesters descended on Montreal's Bell Centre today, demanding the suspension of a new law that changes how doctors in the province are paid. On the heels of a rally in Quebec City last weekend, a quartet of medical federations demonstrated today against legislation known as Bill 2 that Premier François Legault forced through the National Assembly late last month. The law ties part of physicians' remuneration to performance targets and threatens steep fines for those who use pressure tactics to boycott the changes. Doctors argue it muzzles them and that it could drive physicians out of Quebec. An animal sanctuary in BC's interior is reporting the discovery of avian flu on its property. Summerland's Critter Aid says in a social media post that finding a positive case of H5N1 has been devastating for caretakers. The outlet says on its website it provides a home for a variety of rescue animals, with 54 animals listed in their care. Neither the Canadian Food Inspection Agency nor Critter Aid were immediately available to comment on the case. Meanwhile, the CFIA says it has completed the disposal activities connected with the culling of about 300 birds at a BC ostrich farm. The agency released a statement that said the disposal followed all biosecurity and biocontainment protocols to mitigate the spread of avian influenza. The daughter of the co-owner of Universal Ostrich Farms, Katie Pasitny, said after the ordeal, her family will never be the same.
My mom lost everything today. She walked out her front door, and every day she went, she cared for these animals, and she called them by name.
RCMP officers continue to be stationed at the farm, called in for week-long stints from all over BC. And a humanitarian relief organization is sounding the alarm about reported atrocities against civilians by a paramilitary force in Sudan. The International Rescue Committee's David Miliband spoke on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos and says at least 40,000 people have been killed in the country's 2.5-year-old civil war.
For us to hear reports that from satellites in the air you can see the blood on the ground because so many people have been killed, that needs to be a real wake-up call for the international system.
Tens of thousands Sudanese have fled to overcrowded camps to escape the force since it captured El Fasher in the western Darfur region. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, 5 Canadian NHL teams are in action today. Both Ontario teams are at home tonight. Toronto will face Carolina and Ottawa meets Utah. Elsewhere, Calgary is in Minnesota, Winnipeg is at Anaheim, and the Vancouver Canucks are home to the Colorado Avalanche. One early game today, Connor Bedard had a goal and 2 assists as Chicago beat Detroit 5-1. 2 Major League Baseball pitchers have been indicted on charges they took bribes to give sports bettors advance notice of the types of pitches they'd throw. Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz both pitched for the Cleveland Guardians and are currently on a non-disciplinary paid leave. Ortiz was arrested yesterday by the FBI in Boston, and his lawyer issued a statement saying that his client is innocent. And McLaren driver Lando Norris is extending his lead in the Formula One championship standings after winning the Brazilian Grand Prix. Mercedes driver Kimi Antonelli was second. Norris's main rival and teammate Oscar Piastri was fifth, leaving him 24 back with 3 races to go. From the Canadian Press, I'm Don Mitchell.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.